Today, we're going to find out exactly how many rice grains, yes, rice grains, or exactly how many grains of rice are in a 5-kilogram bag. That's right, we're going to count them one by one. But hold on, before anything else, I want to know your guess. How many grains do you think are in here? Leave a comment below. By the end of the video, we'll reveal the answer, and I bet you'll be wrong. If you got it right, it's because you watched the whole video and then commented, right? I get it. But you also know that this is Manual do Mundo, so we're going to try to count this in 4 ways that are more scientific than just counting one by one. I'll start with the most common way, maybe the most accurate of all here, which is by weighing a few grains of rice. What do you think is the weight of a grain? Can we figure it out? It doesn't even move the precision scale. Let's try putting 10. 0.16 grams. Basic rule of 3, 10 grains are 0.16 grams. X grains, there are 5,000 grams or 5 kilos. Is it really 5 kilos? Let's weigh it. I don't want the plastic included, so I'll dump everything into a box and weigh them together. 5,294 grams. I need to repack everything, weigh just the box and subtract to find the difference. It came out to 5 kilos and 24 grams. Doing the math here, then that's 314,000 grains of rice. That's our first estimate. Weighing 10 grains is awful because this scale isn't accurate enough. Notice the first grains I add don't register any weight. Then suddenly the scale shows a weight. It's a bit weird. We should weigh at least 100 grains, so let's do that. 1 gram and 40, it's going to make a big difference. You'll see. That's because there were a lot of broken rice grains, which I counted now. The first time I had picked just one perfect grain. Now we have a much better average of the grains.
I multiply this by this and divide by this.
358,857. And was that more or less what you guessed? Do you think this estimate is good? My way of counting is unusual, but it's commonly used in real life. If you're going to buy screws, for example, you weigh the weight of 1 screw or 10 screws and then calculate how many screws you'll have in 10 kilos. That's how we did the calculations for that bed of nails. And that's how a lot of other things are counted in the industry. Let's go to the second method, which is the volume method. I'm going to take this cap, fill it with rice, and count how many grains are in here. Then it's simple. We see how many caps fit in this whole bag.
I can see this isn't going to be easy.
I'll use the counting method we taught on Manual do Mundo. I count 9, and on the 10th grain, I go down, I separate, and that grain will mark a 10. Now I just count from 1 to 10 and separate the 10th. No more counting by 20s or 50s. In the end, I make a small pile, knowing each grain is worth 10. And at the same time, that grain has already been counted. So it doesn't get messy, I write it down here on the board. And in the end, it was 1,301 grains of rice. Now let's see how many little pots are here. 1, 2, 3. That's not very smart, is it? It's going to be a lot of work. I think it's better to just throw the pot in here. Yeah, I think so. So like this, 1, 2, 3, 14, 16, 220, 286,220. That's a pretty different number, isn't it? Is there a difference here of tens of thousands? But one very important thing, we have a good sense of order of magnitude. What does that mean? We're talking about tens, hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands. Yes, we know that we're talking about hundreds of thousands. With this estimate, I know it's nearly impossible to count and confirm it's a million. I know it's practically impossible for us to count and say it's a million, it's going to be about what's here. I'm already sure about that. My third method, I don't have a name for it, so I'll call it the Infiltrators. I have here in my hand 100 grains of rice painted red. Look, what I'm going to do is throw these grains of rice in here, and now I'm going to mix them. You have to mix it really well, as evenly as possible, and preferably without losing any rice along the way, right? But I think I'm managing. Now I'll take 10 of these caps without looking. See, I'm not looking. 10. How many red grains do you think ended up here? 1, 2, 3. Look at this cool count now. I know that for 4 red grains, I have 10 of those caps. Each cap had 1,303. So I'm going to have 10 caps. 13,010. 100 grains x 13,000, and 10 times 100 divided by 4. 325,250. It's nothing, but we're starting to get to some pretty solid numbers here, huh? The last method, and the coolest of all, because it has a lot to do with our lives, is the one by area. We can't do this here. We'll need to go to another room at Manuel do Mundo. The idea now is for me to spread rice on the floor to make an almost complete layer. I must admit, I thought we could make a perfect layer with just 1 grain of rice, but it's not possible. They just pile up on each other. That's not a problem. As long as we do it uniformly, that's enough for an estimate. Imagine this is a protest and each grain of rice represents a person. How do we count how many people are here? If it were actually on the street, we could calculate how many people there are per square meter or every 10 square meters, and then see the area that these people occupy. That's exactly what I'm going to do here. I know there are 120 floor tiles under the area where we spread the rice. Duh. Now I just need to count how many are in one tile, which will already be a tough task. Let's count this here. I'm now asking for help counting. Even Jansen, our cameraman, joined Danny to help. And these are the numbers right here. Let me add them up. 2,746 times 120 tiles. By this estimate, at our protest, we have 329,520 protesters. These numbers are very similar to each other. There's one that's off here, one above, one below, one over there. It's averaging out to around 320,000. Now, after all that, we're finally allowed to count the rice grains one by one. The problem now is sweeping up all that rice and storing it, right? Because that's what's going to be counted. I might need to call the college students. We'll go to the Mall campus in São Caetano do Sul to count this in 2 ways. First, we'll use artificial intelligence.
It's really boring to count rice grain by grain. So we needed something where we could put a bunch of rice here all at once and it could count them. So what did we try to do? The first thing was to use the camera itself here. And then with a program that differentiated black from white, Bluma, it started to say, everything that's white is a grain of rice. But then, there's a problem. I'm not sure about your experience, but while looking there, I noticed some rice grains are tiny, others large, and some are broken or split in half. So it started to get really hard for us to define an area that said, hey, this here is a grain of rice. So what did we do? We took a completely different approach. We trained an artificial intelligence, which already comes pre-trained to recognize objects, and did specific training for it to count grains of rice.
So does it really understand what a grain of rice is?
It looks at everything it already has in its database and says, well, this here is most likely a grain of rice. And then everything that's rice, we keep adding and saying, look, rice, and we keep adding up, we keep doing it.
But do you think this count you did here will be the closest of all to the manual count?
I think we have a good chance of being very close to that value. I think the error will be around 5%. Considering the size variation and mass of each of the grains gives us a good chance of being very close to the actual value. The idea for this didn't just come out of nowhere like, oh, I'm going to train an artificial intelligence just to count rice. This same technology we use here is also used in our autonomous car. We developed an autonomous car here at MAU. In the future, when everything is ready, this car will be driving around the campus, taking students from one place to another. To show you another application of our solution, I think it would be cool for us to go check out the car. What do you think?
Let's go. Is this car safe? Does it drive properly?
100%. I'll even sit in the back seat, so there's no problem, man.
Let's see. It's going. Wow.
The idea here is that we already use a pre-trained image database and it already has a lot of stuff. It already recognizes cars, license plates, and people. And then if something shows up here on the camera, these numbers that appear are the probabilities that it's the object it thinks it is. So the object that shows up here is the one with the highest probability based on what it's already been trained on. So it can identify a car, a person, and if the person is holding a cell phone in their hand, does it show there that it's a cell phone?
Based on that, it makes decisions to drive. Luke Jansen, our cameraman, is here. He stepped in front to check if the little car would stop for someone, right? It stopped. Did you survive, Jansen?
This model that we call You Only Look Once, right? You Only Look Once stands for You Only Look Once. So you must identify everything at once. It takes a look, grabs everything that's showing up in the video or camera, and already defines, like, this is a car, this is a person, this is a license plate.
It's approved. Anderson explained it to me since he had already done the counting, which takes some time. You have to scan all the grains of rice here. How much was it?
Look, it was 269,084 grains.
269,084. Do you think it'll match if we count by hand? Giovanni did the computational counting by inputting all the grains for the computer. How long did it take you?
It took me about 4 days, and on average about 4 hours a day counting.
That was the easy part. Now comes the human counting, the manual counting. We got the help of 119 students. We divided the bag of rice into several small cups, and now there's not much to it. It's hands-on work.
I think there are at least 500,000.
235,000.
500,000.
265,000.
217,000.
About 720,000.
275,000.
250,000.
250,000.
323,000.
About 247,000.
We had a really bad idea on Manual do Mundo, which was to count how many grains of rice are in the bag. We've already counted these grains in several ways. We're almost certain if the numbers you're guessing are correct. But the only way to know how many grains of rice are in the bag of rice is, in fact, to count the grains. Manual do Mundo. We calculated that it would take one person about 8 days, counting 8 hours a day at home, to count all the grains of rice. That's a long time. So we talked to the people here at MAUA and said, hey, let's invite a big group to help count this. That way we'll finish faster. In the end, we'll know for sure, especially if Anderson's count was accurate and if the artificial intelligence counting rice grains makes sense.
And look, we're almost done counting here, okay? We're at 255,000 grains of rice.
Is this the last one?
It's the last one and the biggest.
Last one. Yeah.
290,621.
290,621. Wow. Look, the number that came closest was the volume estimate. In second place, the computation. Exactly what you predicted happened. It came out a little below the actual number. The weight estimates and everything else were way off since they're just rough estimates, right? For those watching, let it be clear that counting hundreds of thousands is not a simple task. If you have other counting methods, please share them below. Congrats, everyone! We finally have an official number.
I thought it was a fun experience.
I thought it was going to be easier, right?
At first, I thought it was going to be quick, right?
It took a while, almost 2 hours just to count rice, right?
I thought it would be easier.
I had an exhausting experience.
That's a lot of grain.
It was really hard.
Everything worked out.
Our video collection with MAUA is turning out really good. The last one we recorded here was about how whey protein is made. That's right. They have a pilot plant, which is a factory where students can learn in practice how everything is made.